I signed the papers in her hospital room. She was crying, holding my hand, told me she'd die without the surgery. I believed every word. I put my house up as collateral. 3 weeks later, she was dancing in a club in Manila with a guy half my age. The surgery, it never happened. The emergency, it was never real. And me, I'm sitting here in a rented room, trying to figure out how I lost everything to a girl I thought loved me. I met Sherlyn during the worst year of my life. My divorce had just been finalized back in Ohio. 26 years of marriage gone. Linda got the better lawyer, and I got the bills. Most of my savings went to the settlement. I was 58, living alone in a 2-bedroom house that felt like a tomb, and I was so damn lonely I could barely stand it. I'd scroll through my phone at night, looking at old photos, wondering where it all went wrong. That's when I found the dating app, International Connections, they called it. I wasn't looking for anything serious. I just wanted someone to talk to, someone who didn't know about my failed marriage or my empty bank account, someone who might actually want to hear my voice. That's when I saw her profile, Sherlin, 24 years old, from Cebu. Her smile in that photo hit me like a freight train. She looked happy, genuinely happy. Not the fake kind of happy my ex-wife wore at dinner parties, real. I sent her a message. Just a simple hello, she replied within an hour. We talked that entire night, and the next night, and the night after that. For 3 months, we talked every single day. She'd tell me about her life in the Philippines, working at a grocery store, living with her mom in a small house, dreaming about traveling someday. I told her about Ohio, about the divorce, about feeling like my life was over at 58. She never judged me. She just listened. She'd say things like, "You deserve to be happy, Ellis. You're a good man, I can tell." And God help me, I believed her. I bought the plane ticket in July. I didn't tell anyone. Not my kids, not my friends. I just packed a bag and flew halfway around the world to meet a girl I'd only seen on a screen. When I landed in Cebu, I was terrified. What if she didn't show up? What if she took one look at me and realized I was just some old divorced guy with nothing to offer? But she was there, standing at the arrivals gate wearing a yellow sundress, holding a sign with my name on it. When she saw me, her face lit up. Not polite, not practiced, genuine. She ran over and hugged me like I was someone who mattered. "Ellis, you're here. You're really here," she said, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Wanted. We spent the first week just walking around Cebu. She showed me her favorite places, street food stalls, little churches, the waterfront. She'd hold my hand in public, and people would stare, but she didn't care. "Let them look," she said. "I'm proud to be with you." I couldn't believe it. This beautiful young woman wanted to be seen with me. We'd sit at cafes, and she'd ask me questions about my life. Real questions, not just small talk. "What was your favorite thing about being married?" she asked once. I didn't know how to answer. I'd spent so long being angry at Linda. I'd forgotten there were good parts. "Probably the mornings," I finally said. "We'd have coffee together before work, just the two of us, before the kids woke up." She smiled at me. "I'd make you coffee every morning if you stayed here, Ellis." And in that moment, I wanted to stay. Forever. By the end of that first trip, I was already planning my return. She walked me to the airport, and I could see tears in her eyes. "Don't cry," I told her. "I'll be back soon." She hugged me tight. "Promise?" she said. "Promise," I said. I meant it. I flew back to Ohio, but I wasn't really there anymore. My heart was in Cebu. I started looking into retirement options abroad, selling the house, moving permanently. My kids thought I'd lost my mind. My son called me one night. "Dad, you barely know this girl. You're talking about moving to the Philippines for someone you met online?" I tried to explain it to him. Tried to tell him that Sherlin made me feel alive again. But he didn't get it. How could he? He was 32, married, stable. He had his whole life figured out. He didn't understand what it felt like to be alone at 58. staring at the walls of an empty house, wondering if anyone would even notice if you disappeared. I went back to Cebu 2 months later. This time, I stayed for 3 weeks. Sherlyn and I fell into a routine. She'd wake up early and make me breakfast, eggs and rice, the Filipino way. She'd sit across from me at the little table in my rented apartment and smile. "You look happy, Ellis," she'd say. "I am happy," I'd tell her. And I was. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about the past. I was thinking about the future. Our future. It was during that trip that things got serious. We were lying in bed one night, and she turned to me. "Ellis, can I ask you something?" she said. "Anything," I told her. She hesitated. "Do you think we could be together? Like really together? Not just visiting, but living together?" My heart jumped. "Are you saying you want me to stay here?" I asked. She nodded. "Or I could come to America. I don't care where we are. I just want to be with you." I kissed her. "Let's do it," I said. "Let's make this real." She smiled, but there was something in her eyes, something I should have noticed, a flicker of something that wasn't quite love, but I was too far gone to see it. A week later, she told me she was quitting her job at the grocery store. "Why?" I asked. She sat down next to me on the couch. "Because I want to take care of you full time, Ellis. You don't need me working somewhere else. You need me here, with you." I didn't argue. I liked the idea of having her around all the time. I told her I'd cover the rent and the bills. She didn't ask for anything extravagant, just enough to get by. "You're too good to me," she said. I shook my head. "You deserve it," I told her. I believed that. I really did. The first red flag came about 2 months in. We were living together in my apartment in Cebu. I'd extended my stay, started the paperwork to make it more permanent. Everything felt right. But one night, I woke up around 2 a.m. and saw the glow of her phone screen. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, texting someone. I pretended to be asleep and watched her. She was smiling at the screen. Not the smile she gave me. Something different, more private. After a few minutes, she put the phone face down on the nightstand and came back to bed. I didn't say anything. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe a friend, maybe her mom. But it bothered me. The next morning I asked her about it. "Who were you texting last night?" I tried to sound casual. She looked up from her coffee. "Last night? No one, Ellis. I was sleeping." I knew she was lying, but I didn't push it. I didn't want to be that guy, the jealous, insecure old man. So I let it go. But the texts kept coming, always late at night, always face down. And every time I asked, she had an excuse. "It's my cousin. It's my mom. It's my friend from work." One time, a notification popped up while she was in the shower. A message from a contact saved as C. The preview said, "Miss you, baby." My stomach dropped. When she came out, I pointed at her phone. "Who's C?" I asked. Her face went pale. Then she started crying. "That's my cousin, Carlo. He calls everyone baby. It's just how he talks." She grabbed my hands. "Ellis, please don't be mad. You're the only one I love. I swear." I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her, so I did. The money request started small. "Ellis, my mom needs medicine. Can you send 2,000 pesos? Of course I sent it. Then it was 5,000 for rice and groceries. Then 10,000 for the electric bill. I didn't mind. I had my pension, and Sherlin was taking care of me. It felt like a fair trade. But the amounts kept climbing. One day she came to me, tears streaming down her face. "Ellis, I don't know what to do. My mom collapsed. She's in the hospital. They need 80,000 pesos for tests. I don't have it. I don't know who else to ask. 80,000 pesos, about $1,400. It was a lot, but if her mom was sick, what choice did I have? Don't worry," I told her. "I'll take care of it." I wired the money that afternoon. She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "Thank you, Ellis. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you. I felt like a hero, like I'd actually saved someone's life. But I never met her mom, never even spoke to her on the phone. I should have asked more questions. I should have insisted on going to the hospital with her. But I didn't. I just trusted her. A week later, Sherlyn herself got sick. She woke me up one morning, her face pale and sweaty. Ellis, something's wrong. I feel really bad. I helped her to the bathroom. She threw up twice. I called a taxi and took her to the hospital immediately. The doctor's name was Dr. Salazar. He was a short man with glasses, very calm, very professional. He ran some tests and came back about an hour later. "Mr. Ellis, we need to speak privately," he said. My heart sank. I followed him into a small office. "Your girlfriend has a severe ovarian issue. It requires immediate surgery. Without it, there could be complications, serious complications." I felt the room spin. "What kind of complications?" I asked. He didn't sugarcoat it. If untreated, it could become life-threatening within weeks. I swallowed hard. "Okay, do the surgery, whatever it costs." He nodded slowly. "The surgery will cost approximately $12,000 USD. We require payment up front." $12,000. I didn't have $12,000. I'd already drained most of my savings in the divorce. I had my pension, but that was monthly, not a lump sum. I sat there in that tiny office, staring at the floor, trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do. That's when Sherlyn called me back into the room. She was lying in the hospital bed, hooked up to an IV, looking so small and fragile. When she saw me, she started crying. "Ellis, I'm scared. What if I don't make it?" I sat down next to her and took her hand. "You're going to be fine. I'm going to take care of this." She squeezed my hand. "I don't want to die, Ellis. Please, please don't let me die." Her voice broke on the last word, and something inside me broke too. I'd already lost so much. My marriage, my savings, my sense of self. I couldn't lose her too. "I'll figure it out," I told her. "I promise." I called my bank back in Ohio. I explained the situation. The representative was polite but firm. "Mr. Ellis, based on your current savings and pension income, the only way we can approve a loan of this size is if you use your home as collateral. My home. The house I'd lived in for 26 years. The house my kids grew up in. The last thing I had left from my old life. If I do that and I can't pay it back, what happens?" I asked. "We would begin foreclosure proceedings," she said. I closed my eyes. Sherlyn was in the other room, dying, or so I thought. I didn't have a choice. "Do it," I said. "Send me the paperwork." It took 3 days to get the loan approved. 3 days of sitting in that hospital room, watching Sherlyn get weaker, or at least that's what I believed. She barely ate. She'd hold my hand and whisper, "I'm sorry, Ellis. I'm so sorry you have to do this." I'd shake my head. "Don't apologize. I love you. This is what you do for the people you love?" She'd cry and say, "I'll pay you back. When I get better, I'll get a job. I'll pay you back every peso." I told her not to worry about it. Love doesn't keep receipts. On the 3rd day, the loan came through. I signed the documents on my phone while sitting next to her hospital bed. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the screen. Sherlyn watched me the whole time. "Are you sure, Ellis?" she asked. "I'm sure," I said. I paid the hospital that afternoon. $12,000. Gone. Just like that. Sherlyn was discharged 2 days later. The surgery was supposedly successful. She looked tired but alive. That's all that mattered to me. We took a taxi back to the apartment, and I helped her into bed. "Thank you, Ellis," she whispered. "You saved my life." I kissed her forehead. "Rest now. We'll figure everything else out later. But here's the thing." She recovered fast. Too fast. By the next morning, she was sitting up, checking her phone, even laughing at something on the screen. By the afternoon, she was out of bed, making coffee, moving around like nothing had happened. I told myself it was just good medical care, modern medicine, miracles happen, but something felt off. The third day after her discharge, she came to me with an idea. Ellis, I think we should go to Manila for a few days, just to get away, recover somewhere nicer, somewhere we can relax. I was surprised. Are you sure you're strong enough for that? I asked. She smiled. I feel so much better, Ellis. Honestly, I think a change of scenery would be good for us. Please. I couldn't say no to her. I never could. So I booked us a hotel in Manila. A nice one. I figured after everything we'd been through, we deserved it. We took a flight the next day. She seemed excited. More excited than I'd seen her in weeks. On the plane, she kept squeezing my hand. This is going to be perfect, Ellis. Just you and me. A fresh start. I wanted to believe that. I really did. We got to Manila on a Thursday. The hotel was right in the heart of Makati. Big glass towers, fancy restaurants, a whole different world from Cebu. Sherlyn loved it. She'd stand at the window of our room, looking down at the city lights, smiling. This is amazing, Ellis. Thank you for bringing me here. We spent the first few days just exploring, walking around malls, eating at nice restaurants, pretending everything was perfect. But I started to notice little things. She was on her phone more, a lot more, and she was secretive about it. She'd step out onto the balcony to take calls. She'd laugh at texts and then quickly close the screen when I walked by. On the fourth night, she told me she wanted to meet up with an old friend. Who? I asked. Just a girl I went to college with. She lives here in Manila. I haven't seen her in years. Do you mind if I go out for a few hours? I didn't want to be controlling. Of course not. Have fun. She kissed me on the cheek. I'll be back by midnight. Promise. She left around 8 p.m. She was wearing a tight black dress, heels, makeup done perfectly. I remember thinking she looked beautiful. I also remember thinking she looked like she was going somewhere a lot fancier than a casual hangout with an old friend. But I pushed that thought away. I stayed in the hotel room, watched TV, ordered room service. Midnight came and went. No, Sherlyn. I texted her. No response. I called, straight to voicemail. By 2 a.m., I was pacing the room. By 4 a.m., I was starting to panic. I threw on clothes and went downstairs. The front desk clerk, a young guy in his 20s, looked at me sympathetically. Can I help you, sir? He asked. My girlfriend left last night and hasn't come back. I can't reach her. I don't know what to do. He nodded slowly. This is Manila, sir. It's a big city. Maybe she's just having fun with her friends. Phones die. It happens. I wanted to scream at him, but he was right. Maybe her phone died. Maybe she was fine. I went back upstairs and tried to sleep. I couldn't. At sunrise, I went out looking for her. I walked the streets near the hotel, asking random strangers if they'd seen her. I showed them her picture on my phone. No one had seen her. I felt like I was losing my mind. At 10 a.m., I went to the nearest police station. The officer behind the desk barely looked up from his computer. I need to report a missing person, I said. He sighed. Name? I gave him Sherlin's full name. He typed it in. How long has she been missing? He asked. Since last night. About 8 p.m. He looked at me like I was wasting his time. Sir, that's less than 24 hours. She's probably just out with friends. People don't file missing person reports after one night. I felt my chest tighten, but I can't reach her. Her phone's off. What if something happened? He leaned back in his chair. My advice? Go back to your hotel. She'll show up. They always do. I went back to the hotel. I sat on the bed, staring at the door, waiting for her to walk through it. Hours passed. I didn't eat. I didn't shower. I just waited. At 3 p.m., I heard the sound of the keycard in the door. It opened. Sherlyn walked in. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was fresh. She was smiling. She looked like she'd just come from a spa, not from being missing for almost 20 hours. Hey, babe, she said casually. I stood up. My legs felt weak. Where the hell were you? I tried to keep my voice calm. She set her purse down on the dresser. I told you. I was with my friend. Her tone was so matter-of-fact, like I was crazy for worrying. Your phone was off. I couldn't reach you. I went to the police, Sherlin. I thought something happened to you. She laughed. Actually laughed. The police? Ellis, you're being dramatic. My phone died. I didn't have a charger. I'm sorry. I should have called from her phone, but it got late and I didn't want to wake you. I felt anger rising in my chest. You didn't want to wake me? I was awake all night. I was terrified. She walked over and put her arms around me. I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean to worry you. I'm here now. Everything's fine. But everything wasn't fine. I could smell cologne on her, not perfume. Cologne. Men's cologne. I pulled back. Were you with a guy? I asked. Her face hardened. What? No. Ellis, stop. You're being paranoid. I wanted to believe her, but I didn't. The rest of that trip was tense. She was distant, cold. We barely talked. She'd spend hours on her phone. And when I'd ask who she was talking to, she'd snap at me. Why do you need to know everything, Ellis? Can I have some privacy? I felt like I was walking on eggshells. On our last night in Manila, I woke up around 3 a.m. She wasn't in bed. I found her on the balcony, talking on the phone in Tagalog. I don't speak Tagalog, but I could hear the tone. She was laughing, flirting. When she saw me standing there, she quickly said something and hung up. Who was that? I asked. My mom, she said. I knew she was lying. We flew back to Cebu the next day. The whole flight, she had her headphones in, scrolling through her phone, ignoring me. I kept replaying everything in my head, the late-night texts, the disappearance in Manila, the cologne, the lies, but I couldn't bring myself to confront her, because if I confronted her and she admitted the truth, then what? I'd be alone again, and I wasn't ready for that. When we got back to the apartment, things got worse. She barely looked at me. She'd sleep on the couch some nights, saying she didn't want to disturb me. We stopped having sex. We stopped talking. I felt like I was living with a stranger. One afternoon, she left her phone on the bed while she went to take a shower. I'd never looked through her phone before. I swear I wasn't that kind of person. But something inside me snapped. I picked it up. No password. The screen opened right away. The first thing I saw was her messages. There was a contact saved as just C. I opened it. My hands started shaking immediately. There were hundreds of messages, pictures of them together, kissing, holding hands, videos, voice notes where she called him baby. I scrolled up. The messages went back months. Months. While we were together, while I was paying for everything, while I was saving her life, or at least I thought I was saving her life. I kept scrolling. My chest felt tight. I could barely breathe. Then I saw it. A message from 3 weeks ago, right after her surgery. She'd sent him a laughing emoji and typed, "He actually believed the surgery thing. 12K. Can you believe it?" My vision blurred. I read it again and again. The surgery thing. He actually believed it. I heard the shower turn off. I put the phone back exactly where it was. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. My mind was racing. The surgery was fake. The emergency was fake. Everything was fake. She walked out of the bathroom in a towel, drying her hair. She looked at me and stopped. "What's wrong?" she asked. I couldn't speak. My throat felt like it was closing. "Ellis, you're scaring me." "What happened?" she said. I finally looked at her. "Who's Carlo?" I asked. Her face went pale. She didn't say anything. "I saw your phone, Sherlin. I saw everything." She stood there for a long moment. Then she sat down on the bed, about 3 feet away from me. She didn't cry, didn't apologize. She just sighed. "How much did you see?" she asked. I felt rage building in my chest. Enough. I saw the pictures, the messages. I saw you laughing about me, about the surgery. She looked down at her hands. Ellis, it's not what you think. I laughed. It was a bitter, hollow sound. Not what I think? You've been lying to me this entire time. The surgery was fake, wasn't it? She didn't answer. Wasn't it? I shouted. She flinched. Then she nodded. Yes, okay? Yes, it was fake. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. Why? I asked. My voice cracked. Because I needed the money, Ellis, she said quietly. For what? For him? She nodded again. Carlo and I have been together for 2 years. We're saving up for a condo, a down payment. I didn't know how else to get it. I stared at her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So you faked a life-threatening illness? You made me put my house up as collateral? You took $12,000 from me for a condo, for you and your boyfriend. She looked at me. Her eyes were dry. I didn't think you'd actually do it, Ellis. I thought you'd say no, but you didn't. You just gave it to me. I stood up. My legs were shaking. I gave it to you because I thought you were dying. I thought I was saving your life. She shrugged. I know. I'm sorry. But it's done now. I felt something break inside me. Not my heart. Something deeper. My sense of reality. My sense of self. Get out, I said quietly. She looked up at me. What? I said it louder. Get out. Now. She stood up slowly. She grabbed her phone, her purse. She didn't try to argue, didn't beg me to stay. She just walked to the door. Then she turned back. Ellis, you're a nice guy. But you're old. You really thought I loved you? She said it so casually, like she was commenting on the weather. She left. The door clicked shut. I stood there in the middle of the empty apartment, staring at nothing. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes, hours. Time didn't make sense anymore. I thought about everything. The late-night texts, the disappearance in Manila, the cologne, all the signs I ignored because I wanted to believe. Because I needed to believe. I sat down on the bed and put my head in my hands. I'd lost my house, $12,000, my dignity. And for what? For a girl who never loved me, who saw me as nothing more than a wallet, a lonely old man she could manipulate. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. I just felt numb, hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left nothing but an empty shell. I stayed in the Philippines for another 2 weeks. I didn't have anywhere else to go. My house back in Ohio was as good as gone. I couldn't afford the loan payments. The bank had already started sending me notices. Foreclosure proceedings. Legal jargon I didn't fully understand but knew meant I was screwed. I spent those 2 weeks mostly in the apartment. I didn't go out much, didn't eat much. I'd lie in bed at night, replaying every moment, every conversation, trying to figure out where I went wrong. I'd think about that first night we met at the airport, her yellow dress, her smile. Was any of it real? Or was I just a mark from day one? I flew back to the States in October. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I took a cab from the airport to my house. There was a foreclosure notice taped to the front door. I stood there on the porch, staring at it. 26 years. I'd lived in that house for 26 years, raised my kids there, had Christmases there, built a life there, and now it was gone. I turned around and walked away. I didn't even go inside. I found a cheap motel on the edge of town and stayed there for a week while I figured out my next move. Eventually, I found a studio apartment, small, 1 room, a kitchenette, a bathroom. That was it. It was all I could afford on my pension. I moved in with 1 suitcase. That's all I had left. 1 suitcase and a pension check. I tried calling my kids. My son didn't answer. My daughter picked up, but the conversation was short. Dad, I can't talk right now. I'm at work. I could hear the disappointment in her voice. She didn't say it, but I knew. They thought I was pathetic, and maybe I was. I stopped trying to explain what happened, stopped trying to defend myself. What was the point? I'd flown halfway around the world, fallen for a girl young enough to be my daughter, given her everything, and got played. There's no way to spin that story where I come out looking good. I've been back for 3 months now. I don't talk about Sherlyn anymore. If people ask about the Philippines, I just say it didn't work out. Most people don't press for details. They can see it in my face. The shame, the regret. Late at night, I still think about her. Not because I miss her. I don't. I think I finally understand that whatever I felt for her wasn't love. It was desperation, loneliness, a need to feel wanted by someone, anyone. And she saw that. She saw a lonely old man with money and a kind heart, and she used both. I don't hate her. I wish I could. Hate would be easier, but I don't. I hate myself. I hate that I ignored every red flag. I hate that I let my need for companionship blind me to the truth. I hate that I gave her everything because I was terrified of being alone. And now, here I am, alone anyway. But this time, I'm broke too. I'm 58 years old. I'm starting over from scratch. No house, no savings, just a pension and a studio apartment. My kids barely talk to me. My friends don't know the full story, and I'm too ashamed to tell them. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever trust anyone again. If I'll ever be able to look at a woman and not wonder what she really wants from me. But I'm still here. I get up every morning. I make coffee. I go for walks. I'm trying to figure out who I am now. Not Ellis the husband. Not Ellis the fool who got scammed in the Philippines. Just Ellis. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I'm working on it. I've started seeing a therapist, an older woman named Dr. Brennan. She's patient with me, lets me talk without judgment. Last week, I told her the whole story, start to finish. When I was done, she looked at me and said, "You weren't stupid, Ellis. You were human, and humans need connection. There's no shame in that." I wanted to believe her. I'm trying to believe her, but it's hard, because every time I close my eyes, I see Sherlyn's face. Not the face she made when she was pretending to love me, the face she made when she left, cold, detached, unaffected. That's the face I can't forget. I've learned something from all this, something painful but necessary. Love without self-respect is just self-destruction. I loved Sherlyn, or I thought I did, but I didn't love myself. I didn't value myself enough to walk away when the red flags started piling up. I let my fear of loneliness override my common sense, and I paid the price. I don't know if I'll ever fall in love again. Honestly, I'm not sure I want to, but I do know this. If I ever do, it'll be different. I won't ignore the signs. I won't give everything away just to feel wanted. I won't lose myself again. I'm 58 years old. I'm starting over, and this time, I'm doing it for me. Not for anyone else, just me. That's all I have left. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.